The Democratic National Committee has announced which 2020 candidates will appear on the debate stage at the end of the month. We still don't know what day they'll appear and who they'll be debating. I spoke about this earlier with Washington Post national reporter Dave Weigel, CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns, and CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe.
The DNC, after we've been waiting around all day, has finally announced the 20 who we will see on stage at the end of the month in Miami. There they are. Biden, Bennett, Booker, Buttigieg, Castro, de Blasio made the cut. John Delaney, Tulsi Gabbard, Kirsten Gillibrand, Kamala Harris. The only ones essentially missing here are Seth Moulton, the Massachusetts congressman, Steve Bullock, the Montana governor, there we go, Wayne Messam, a mayor from Miramar, Florida, and Mike Gravel, the former Alaska senator, who CBS counts as a candidate, others don't necessarily. Interestingly, if you look at the 20, if we can go back to the 20, the DNC tells us that Biden, Booker, Buttigieg, Castro, Gabbard, Gillibrand, Harris, Inslee, Klobuchar, O'Rourke, Sanders, Warren, Williamson, and Yang all qualified on both the fundraising and polling thresholds, while de Blasio, Bennett, Delaney, Hickenlooper, Ryan, and Swalwell are there because they only met the polling threshold. So remember, the DNC has said, Tom Perez told our Major Garrett just last week, that there is a premium on the ability to demonstrate grassroots support. Most of those participating in these debates have met both of those thresholds. A handful are there just on name recognition alone. But this is essentially what we had expected. And again, the DNC was meeting today to finalize the lineup. What we will learn tomorrow is exactly on which night will each of these 20 debate. There's going to be 2 debates on the 26th and the 27th, so exactly 2 weeks from tonight will be the second one. NBC is the host network. They will inform us tomorrow who's playing on night 1 and who's playing on night 2. The DNC and NBC have agreed that there will be a mix of top tier and lower tier, if you look at it that way, candidates on both nights. So you won't just have like the A team on Wednesday and the B and C team on Thursday. You will see a mix of it, which has led some, like Joe Biden this week in Iowa, and Dave and Caitlin and I all saw this, sort of downplay expectations and frankly just the importance of this first round, saying that in essence it's just going to be sort of an opportunity for some of these lesser known folks to just get 2 minutes of airtime across the country to introduce themselves. If you're not Biden or Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, really, you're still in that get-to-know-you phase. And it'll be interesting to see how all of these campaigns now spin their appearance in this debate over the next 2 weeks.
So with that being said, Ed, what have you heard from the campaigns about how these candidates are prepping for the debate?
Well, we got an interesting answer from Beto O'Rourke earlier today in an interview elsewhere, where he said that he's working with his team every day to sort of home an answer that would be succinct and try to get get across the points that he wants to make about himself and what he would do as president. The problem is you can't just plug in that answer to a specific question if that's all he gets. So it'll be curious to see how they prepare for that, because what if you get a question about climate change or the situation in the Middle East, and that isn't necessarily the issue or the thing you were anticipating? And how do you make the most of your airtime when you've got 9 other candidates on stage with you? It's going to be a real tricky situation, especially if you're someone who wants to attack whoever the top tier person on stage is, whether that's Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. Do you sort of train all your fire in their direction in hopes of getting a little more airtime for yourself? We'll see. But nobody has really ever had to debate in this kind of a circumstance before. Dave and Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong, but so there's really no textbook example of how to do this, and I think it's going to be real challenging for these campaigns over the next few weeks now to prepare.
So Dave, when you talk to voters, what topics do they most want to hear about in the debates?
Oh, they don't really bring up the debates. If they do, it's that they want to see people that they have not heard as much from in their own meanderings around the internet, around TV. And so frankly, in listening to Ed talk about that, we're going to have a lot of speculation about this. I think the most exciting thing to wait for in the debate is if someone like a Cory Booker and even Andrew Yang has a moment that we're all talking about, or a breakthrough we're all talking about, which tends to be the one predictable thing about debates is how unpredictably the standout is. When it comes to what the voters are asking, it's pretty nationalized. There are a lot of actually activist groups on the ground that are digging in on the specifics of issues like getting rid of the Hyde Amendment. That's how that issue came about, frankly, on the specifics of the climate plan, on not taking fossil fuels. The voter who just kind of showed up to ask them questions is mostly interested in one, how they're going to handle Trump as a campaigner, because there's quite a lot of trauma about how that was handled in 2016, and then a couple of specifics about health care, about climate. It has not been the real meat grinder that some of these Iowa campaigns have, where you're getting question after question after question about your immigration policy, your farming. A lot of the Democratic questions at these events presume that they disagree with Trump on everything, so they let them get a little more room. It's I think, frankly, been pretty good prep for the debates, and I would finally add prep that Biden has not done much of. He's had donor events. I think he might go into the debate having taken 6 or 7 questions from voters in the last 6 years, whereas someone like Warren, someone like Beto, someone like Klobuchar has gone through the ringer.
So, Caitlin, when you talked to Iowa voters about Joe Biden, you said earlier that you mainly heard sort of 3 types of responses. What were they?
Right. Well, you had some people who said that they like Biden, they're appreciative of his service, but they want someone new. Someone told us that Biden was an old pair of shoes in their telling, and that came from a voter who was above the age of 67 or 69. So that's one camp, and we heard that from younger voters as well. Another camp is, sure, I vote for him if he's the nominee, but I want to look at these other candidates. Biden would be fine. And then others that we talked to after Biden events, particularly one that he did the other night when the crowd was a little more awake and excited and had a little more energy. Talked to a few voters who, after hearing Biden talk, were firmly in his camp, thinking that he would be best positioned to take on Donald Trump. And that's really the lens through which they're viewing a lot of these candidates, which is different from what we've seen in past campaigns, as we were talking about, less focused on issues specifically and more focused on, okay, can this person defeat Donald Trump? Because that's the first step in getting some of these issues that I care about, these voters say, accomplished.
Yeah, it will be so fascinating to see them all on that debate stage. All right, Dave Weigel, Caitlin Huey-Burns, and Ed O'Keefe, thanks to you all.